I feel like back in the day, if you were a tradesman, that you understood that the quality of your work was your signature, and that there was importance to taking your time and making sure it was just right. And it's not mass-produced. It's made by this one person with his one hand or her hand. And I think that Tiffany, there's this attention to the craft and a responsibility, a personal responsibility to do it as best as you possibly can and to continue to want to improve. I think there's something real powerful in that.
There's another little garden over here that's like a Japanese garden. It's on the way over out to the bamboo forest. Look at the little swarm of bugs right there. See it? You know what kind of bird that is? Let's see if it stays here. I have a thing for the surface of water. And so half the frame of the composition is, you're good. Yes, he's really good at what he does. Anyway, let's go check out the bamboo. Let him do his job. It's nice though, isn't it? I like this garden. I think the only thing that keeps me going is looking at something like this and saying, I have no idea how to do that. How would I do that? How light comes through leaves. I really like translucent things, but you know, I'm not that good of a painter. I need to work on it. Aren't these beautiful the way they fall? I just finished another painting and I have to take it to Francisco to get varnished.
There's crotch mahogany right
I feel
there.
like this is very
Leathery, doesn't it look
it's
like?
very leathery, but I feel like this was really popular in like the Victorian era.
Well, it's funny because, you know, I end up smelling wood dust every day. So when she pops through the door, she'll be like, oh, it's like perfume. It's a nice smell. It's wood. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, I don't know about that. But she's always fun to work with. She's always very cheerful. And I love talking to her because she always has great ideas. This is some sort of burl.
I want to paint on burl. Can we bleach it?
Yeah, but it's really hard to control the color. It won't be uniform.
I know, but let's try it sometime. Zoom in on this. It looks like an Alex Gray painting.
Maple's been the safest for her paintings just because it's really light and the grain's really tight. Basically, this was the original color, and then by bleaching it a couple of times, it'll turn very white. And that's how she can get the lighter colors. That way she doesn't have to cover or thicken the paint too much. Sometimes the art world is hard, but she kind of has it down.
I grew up in Russellville, Arkansas, till I was 6. And then we moved up to Cleveland, Ohio. And there's a suburb of Cleveland called Strongsville, Ohio. And that's where I lived until I was 17. My mother was a school teacher and she would just bring home stacks of white paper. And so we'd always just sit around at the kitchen table, my brother and my sister and I, and just draw each other with flies around each other's heads and, you know, just have a lot of fun. Yeah, and have like little drawing competitions. And me being the youngest, I was always trying to get attention somehow. So I think I really took it to heart, drawing and trying to really stand out for doing something creative. I've always drawn, well, what was around me, and we always had a lot of animals, so I guess I just drew them. We were sort of the funny family that had way too many animals for suburbia. I came from relatively humble beginnings, so I felt like, well, if I was gonna pay to put myself through school, I might as well just try to fumble through it on my own and try to find my own vision of what I wanted out of my life, rather than being told anything. So I just packed up my car, and I had some friends that are living out here in San Francisco. And so I came out here and just tried. I think the fear was that I was afraid of what I would become if I didn't paint all the time. Maybe if there was a choice, then I could be, okay, this is a scary decision, but because there was really nothing else that I could do, it was like, well, do or die, you know? Like and it still feels that way. Like, when I'm making a show, I have no idea if after I make all this work, if I hang it up in a gallery, if anybody's gonna like it, and that's not why I'm painting it. I'm painting it because I absolutely have to. If I'm not working every day, then I just have this immense pressure that I put on myself. And the only thing that makes it go away is working. I'm really interested in the human emotion. And rather than having just like illustrating a person like sad or happy or something, I'm interested in stuff that is a lot more complex. And so if I could find examples in nature that anybody in the world can look at and there isn't some connection to it. So, for example, if I paint a person, I have to assign it a gender, I have to give it an ethnicity, I have to do all these things to it, but if I have an animal, it's relatively safe. Some of the artists that have inspired me from the time I was a little kid, like Audubon and Ernst Haeckel, they were scientists. And they're very much interested in the natural world and trying to figure out a way to convey the character of their subjects. Every artist that's painting in a realistic style that's using photo reference has to figure out a way to make it work for them. And some artists find photos on the internet, some artists go to the library. I used to spend hours in that library just leafing through books and trying to figure it out, but they're not your photos, and so how do you figure out a way to use this emotion and in this illustration, how do you merge it all together? How do you make it work? And that was always a problem for me. So I just started getting a camera and going outdoors as much as I could. And that's how I met Jack, because I was invited to check out the collection at the Academy. Some of the birds and drawers.
So this is the main dry storage room.
This is where I work mostly, I would say.
We have something that I think they say 28 million specimens now. And it's, documentation of plants and animals that live in different parts of the world. And it's the most tangible and complete record of life on Earth. And that's what museums are really all about, is recording all this stuff and keeping it. And we also, especially in the bird and mammal department, probably have the largest number of artists who come to see the collection and to use it as reference in their own artistic work. The Artist in Residence program was something that was envisioned by Lindsay Irving, who is a mutual friend of Tiffany and mine, and also the person who introduced us to each other. She wanted to try and figure out how can we have a really cool project that involves our friends who are scientists and artists together. And so one idea was to try and bring an artist into the museum to work together with a curator and together envision pieces of artwork that would inform the public about the collections, but also utilize the collections in a really creative way that scientists might not ever think of. She produced 5 large wood panels in typical Tiffany Bozic style, and they were amazing paintings. And then also, together with Bart Shepard, what they did was they actually put together aquariums with live animals, but instead of having like a diorama of the animal in its natural habitat, what they did was they did something really artistic, and they used black and white sand to make polka dots, and then they chose animals that were really artistic and that looked really beautiful, they were going for a feel, and it was a really, really creative project. first trip together was to Sausalito, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't really count. But yeah, he invited me to go to Papua New Guinea with him for 6 weeks. And so I did go, and we went up to the Eastern Highlands. And that is the first place that I sort of got my bush legs. He's been working in Papua New Guinea for over 20 years, all around. And he is best known for discovering, I should say the first Western scientist to discover this bird that's poisonous. He was checking them in the nets, just pulling them out of nets, and it bit him. And he's like, oh. And his mouth started tingling. And he's like, what's going on? And then he talked to a couple other people, and they're like, yeah, something happened. So he went back there and he took a feather and put it in his mouth, and it went psst. It's like licking a battery. And so he went back and did some more research, and he found that, yes, in fact, this bird is very poisonous. And so when I first met him, I went to New Guinea with him, and we were collecting some and trying to keep some alive and trying to figure out, ooh, what are they eating? Is it nanny sannies, these little insects, or are the nanny sannies getting it from something else? Is it a fungus? We still don't know. And so the last couple trips, we got a sailboat and we went around the southeastern tip of Milne Bay on a sailboat and went to over 20 islands to just try to figure out what's living on these islands and take some data. And so I go on there and I go with him and I help him do the grunt work and collect the birds. And it's an incredibly amazing opportunity for an artist to be able to go.
When we're out in the field together, she'll say something about this animal or that animal or how it makes her feel, or she'll notice some interaction that the animals do, and you can just immediately see the wheels starting to turn, and and then she comes up with the ideas for the paintings later. While we're all working on our field notes or we're all working on our diaries at the end of the day, she'll be sketching, and then we get a little view into what she's been thinking all day long. There have been a couple times when we've been out in the field and we're trying to explain to the local folks what it is we're trying to find, and she'll just make a sketch for us and she'll say, this is what it looks like and this is where the colors are in this. And we have talked about trying to do a little field book, a little field guide for the local folks in some of the places where we've gone. In Milne Bay province in New Guinea was one of the places that we've talked about. And so, for a project like that, she definitely would be painting really beautiful illustrations of all the birds that are lifelike and scientifically accurate. But that's not really where her heart is. That's not the stuff that she really, really loves to paint.
Ever since I came back from New Guinea this last time, I had to start getting back into my work, and it's like it gets this flow going, and then before long I'm completely inundated with all these ideas in the shower while I'm making coffee, all these different experiences. And so when I'm out in the field and I'm like holding a frog mouth, I'm taking lots of photos of it because I love it, and I really want to do something with it. But at the time I'm in my outdoor mode, and I'm not internalizing it yet. So I wake up in the morning and I say, what do I feel like painting today? And I dig through some of the photos that I took on my trips and I say, oh yeah. And then what am I experiencing? Am I feeling like frustrated? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling sad? I mean, those are pretty black and white emotions. I don't really say that, but that's the general idea. Everything that I'm doing, I'm just showing my mistakes, and I accept that, I know that there's a lot of things about them that could be done better, but what matters is that you're trying. And I think that all of my favorite musicians, I'm thinking of like Ella Fitzgerald. She was up on stage and she was singing her song and just jamming out, and she completely forgot her lyrics.
Oh, what's the next chorus to this song now? This is the one now. I don't know.
And she starts just bebopping, just like, it doesn't matter, I forgot the lyrics, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that I'm loving what I'm doing, and that I'm having fun, and that I'm sharing it. And I've been showing my work publicly for years, and it's always just been a big pile of mistakes, So the idea was, first, rather than come at it from a very controlled way, I just decided to learn a new medium like watercolor and just start small and just work out some sketches basically and make 30 of them. And then I plan on showing these, but taking the strongest out of them and just go back to my traditional medium, which is acrylic on wood.
Joshua Liner Gallery for the opening of Tiffany Bozic's new show, Confiding to Strangers. This is like pretty much a year of her life. There's 13 new wood panels and then 18 watercolors on paper, which is different for her. And I'm honored to have her showing here in the gallery. It's her first time showing in New York, and it's a big honor to have her showing here with us.
From when the clock struck 6, you know, people started rolling in, and it's been crowded ever since. She's been working on this for over a year and a half, and she's put a lot of soul into it. And I think partially because she was really anticipating this show in New York, so she worked extremely hard to get all the pieces together. And it really shows. They look great.
She has gotten progressively better and better. I didn't even know that she had practiced doing these beautiful watercolors, but I can see it. And what she can do is phenomenal.
I had the opportunity to try something totally new that I had never done before, never knew I could do it, with each and every piece. So every single one was like another head up on a ladder to understanding more about myself and understanding more about pushing my medium. Yeah, I know myself better now. And I guess that's part of growing older too. And if you work on something all the time, you just learn so much. So I feel pretty good about it. Maybe in 5 years I'll be doing something totally different. Maybe I'll just be like a Pollock, you know, just whoosh. I don't know. Right now I'm really interested in the details and learning about like how does light come through a crystal. You know, learning new mediums like watercolor is challenging. I don't know. I could talk about it all I want to, but at the end of the day, I think that I'm just following my instincts, whatever is interesting to me at the time.